Late News with Kate Witherby.
Tonight we interrupt special programming to bring you a special news bulletin. An epidemic of boredom-related sleepiness, also known as BRS, has been sweeping the nation. Nearly 200,000 school students Australia-wide have come down with the illness, and even more worldwide. Symptoms of BRS are said to include tiredness and boredom, yawning, glazed eyes, and sufferers even report being severely distracted. The epidemic was first reported in boring traditional museums, but in recent times has also spread to classrooms worldwide. If you're worried that your children might be experiencing symptoms of BRS, please contact your nearest modern museum for an immediate dose of digital interactive media therapy. Okay, so that was a slight exaggeration, but you can understand why kids would be bored by the idea of wandering around a large, dusty old building looking at old things. We live in a society where we're surrounded by digital media, and Dribbin and Rickhoff state that most Americans under the age of 35 have lived their entire lives in a world shaped by innovations in communication technology. As a result of this, they have extremely high expectations for interactive content delivery. Graham Black explains that this is due to changes in society and an increase in digital media in our everyday lives. He even questions whether museums are still as necessary as they once were, stating that the internet poses a direct threat to the position that museums hold as gatekeepers to and interpreters of the cultural memory of humankind. The slow digital uptake of many museums means that audiences simply aren't interested in reading facts on a page. Stogner agrees, suggesting that museum visitors are no longer just passive observers, but instead are becoming participatory and learning in collaborative and interactive ways. She states that through multisensory immersion, visitors have a high emotional engagement, and through this, museums can create a more profound and memorable experience. In the case of cultural exhibitions, a meaningful story enhanced with multisensory immersion can activate a visitor's imagination, transporting them to the life and times of ancient cultures and historical events. While many museums have been slow starters into the digital world, some have responded to the demand for digital media. The development of programs where a user can sit at their computer and access a digital walkthrough version of a museum means access is no longer an issue for anybody. Google's Art Project, for example, allows users to look at famous paintings while reading information about them. I interviewed a friend, Kendall, who is currently a teaching student majoring in history. I asked her several questions relating to how history is currently taught and how she might consider engaging students when teaching history herself.
Well, probably the most recent, which was the Holocaust Museum. I went last trimester with my Holocaust group, and we went and listened to a couple of survivors, Moshi and Rosa, I think her name was, people who had actually survived the Holocaust, and had to listen to their story. It was pretty astounding.
Full on.
Yeah, exactly. And I even took my partner with me, and he was really amazed by it as well. And he's not into history or anything like that, so that was good.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think it's always harder to read it than just listen to it, but actually having someone there telling you about it and telling you their whole history, like, makes it so much more real because they're right there in front of you. It's not like it's just a made-up story. It's someone who's actually telling you, like, you know, the horrors of what happened when we all know what happened, but to actually have someone that's, you know, going to be not here in the next maybe 10 years talk about something like that's just ridiculous. Not necessarily. I think a lot of people go to the internet to find out their research instead of saying, hey, I'm going to go to the museum and look up this place and find out stuff about it. But I think families still, you know, have day trips to the museum and, you know, just like we do to the zoo and the Hillsville Sanctuary and things like that. I think it's always going to be a part of it, and it's always going to be a part of school curriculum.
Yep. So
as much as it's become a much more digital age, I don't think we're going to completely lose it. Specifically, the Jewish Holocaust Museum does different things, like the fact that they have layouts of what old camps looked like, and they have people's stories. They've got pictures on the walls. They actually have people who are still alive today have recordings of them talking about their families, and you can see the photos. It's not just someone stating the facts, it's seeing the facts as well. This generation today has grown up with mobile phones since before they were born, and like everything is media. Like, I was at my placement last week, and every year 11 and 12 student was doing their notes in class on a laptop. They barely ever used a book. and next year they're all getting iPads, like every individual student, like everything is digitalised these days, and everything needs to be on a fancy screen so that kids are actually interested, and half the time they're still not interested in the information that's on there. But it's probably the best way to be able to get into their minds, given that everything else is done that way. Why not compete in the same way?
Yeah.
Like I said, there's no way that you're going to be able to get kids engaged unless you're doing something that's really going to interest them. It's going to be outside of the box. It can't just be a piece of paper on the side of the wall that they've got to read. And to keep them interested, you need to have that digital media that they're so accustomed to in everyday life. Otherwise, they're going to find it strange instead of interesting.